Alrighty. So for this module assignment, I decided to talk about race, more specifically the treatment of African Americans. All right. So my name is Mikey Story, and as I mentioned earlier, these slides will walk through racial issues, specifically focusing on African Americans and how they've been treated in society throughout the years, how the racial issues have either decreased or reduced, and how there are still racial issues in America. So for the case study, right, in history, there is no more famous example of Black students' mistreatment than in the segregation of Black and white students in classrooms. Brown versus the Board of Education determined that it was against the Constitution. This granted students the ability to attend any school of their choice, regardless of their race. That was 70 years ago. And as a society today, we have made tremendous strides towards equality. Unfortunately, there are still some racial issues that need to be addressed. Um, in this specific case study, it talks about um, disciplines and how, on average, Black students get punished way more often than white students. This quote reads, though research demonstrates that Black children are not more likely to misbehave than white children, Black students, especially male Black students, are much more likely to encounter stronger disciplinary measures for the same offenses as their white peers. This is an obvious discriminatory factor. Um, Understanding these types of factors is the best way to combat them, right? To make a change. If we don't understand that there is a some type of discrimination going on, then there will not be any type of change being made. History. African Americans have experienced immense racial issues, springing from as far back as slavery. Even after the abolishment of slavery, Black people were fighting for their civil rights for years before basic human rights were granted to them. The Civil War officially abolished slavery, but it didn't end discrimination against Black people. They continued to endure the devastating effects of racism, especially in the South. There have been many great strides, as mentioned in the previous slide, in racial justice since the movement. However, some still experience injustices in the workplace, schools, and other areas of life. Understanding the history plays an important role in making the right decisions in order to fight racial injustices. We cannot sit there and say that there isn't any type of racial injustice going on in America. To do that would be ignorant, right? And then no strides will continue to be made, nothing will change, right? And these injustices, whether it is in the workplace, in schools, or cafeterias, wherever it may be, they will continue to happen because we are ignoring those injustices. Looking back at our history allows us not to repeat it. Racial stereotypes. There are a lot of stereotypes and microaggressions that are used to either make fun of or to discriminate against Black people. All stereotypes are discrediting the human being and looking at their skin color and completely disregarding the person. It is possible that the initial intent behind a stereotype can be seen as unharmful. So such as saying like, oh, all Black people are good at basketball, or all Black people are good at sports. Um, Even if the intent behind it may not seem harmful or it seems harmless, it's still disregarding the human, right? You don't know if they're good at sports. You don't know if they even like sports. And to say that they are due to what they look like is disrespectful to them. A very popular and hurtful stereotype is that Black kids don't know their dads, right? Not only is it disrespectful to say to a child, but it is also a huge discredit to Black families and fathers who provide for those families. DopeBlack.org elaborates on this, explaining that this stereotype has been perpetuated through the media portrayals and has contributed to a negative perception of Black fatherhood. However, research consistently shows that Black fathers are just involved in their children's lives as fathers of other races. These stereotypes are harmful, okay? They hurt, right? And they're just not true, right? To make a stereotype, whether it is a joke amongst friends or a racial comment, is disrespectful to those people. Okay, instead of making a stereotype based off of a race or based off of a bias that somebody may have. Take the time to know that person, okay, and understand what that person is about. Because stereotypes in its basis form is just a racial statement made based off of what that person looks like and based off of a bias that you have. So as mentioned earlier, regardless of if it is a good stereotype or a bad stereotype, it is never going to be okay to use stereotypes and can be seen as harmful and hurtful to that person. So simple enough, what should we do? The easiest ways for educators to ensure that they are being equal, as well as promoting equity, is to eliminate any predetermined bias. We mentioned a lot about the stereotypes. Stereotypes come from the bias, right? And as much as we like to say that we don't have bias against maybe a certain race, certain type of sport, whatever the case is, we all have biases. So the best way of combating this bias is to completely eliminate it. So how do we do that? Right? The action can be described as resist making assumptions about students and colleagues, right? Which would also include relying, too heavily on first impressions. It's very easy to judge somebody based off of a first time meeting them. However, that can be very unfair. Okay. Judging somebody based off of any type of cultural factor, any type of racial factor is completely unfair to that person. Not giving that person the opportunity to express themselves, that opportunity to get to know you and you to get to know them is also completely unfair. Um, Black students should not be judged on what they look like or an experience that an educator may have had with a prior Black student, right? Once again, it is very easy to judge a person based off of a prior experience that we've had. I believe we've all done it. As unfortunate as it is, we have all done it, right? So rather than judging based off of a prior experience, right, understand that each student is different and should be given the avenue to celebrate those differences within a classroom setting, right? Celebrating those different cultures, celebrating their different life experiences and the things that they like to do. They should be allowed to express those things. They should be allowed to celebrate those things rather than to feel discriminated against based off of those things and based off of a bias that they have nothing to do with. The hardest part about eliminating bias is acknowledging that you have a bias. It's very easy, right, to say that we are completely unbiased. That would be untrue. We all have biases that we may have based off of our own life experiences, the way we've lived, what we've been taught, the way we've been taught, right? So the best way to understand how to eliminate our bias is to acknowledge that it's there in the first place. As mentioned before, in the terms of history and understanding our history and not repeating it, it's the same thing with bias. If we do not understand that we have a bias, if we do not acknowledge that there is a bias, there's no way for us to make the change needed so that we can best support our children in the classroom, right? And our peers and whatever the case may be. TimesHigherEducation.com states, we need to reflect on how our interactions with other people may be influenced by biases. Even if we do not realize it at the time, right? There may have been interactions within your own life, whether it is a personal interaction, a career interaction, sport interaction, whatever the case is, that could have been influenced by a personal bias that you have. And now biases do not only have to be uh, a racial issue. A bias could be based off of one experience you have with a person, and then any other experience you have with that person, you only think to that negative interaction or that positive interaction, right? Reflecting on our own experiences and understanding our biases can help us eliminate bias in the classroom. Once again, if we do not understand our history, if we do not understand our own biases, we will never make those changes needed. Okay. Um, as educators, it is imperative that we are supportive and we are resources for all students, regardless of race, regardless of culture, regardless of religion, any type of um, thing that could differentiate them from us, right? Sometimes it is okay to make decisions based off of our own life experiences. It's going to happen. However, as educators, we are going to be teaching different types of people from different places, different backgrounds, different races, different languages. If we sit there and only teach based off of our own life experiences, we are going to be missing out on many other different types of viewpoints and life experiences and worldviews. And that's not fair to those children either. Their voices deserve to be heard, their cultures deserve to be represented, right? And they should be allowed to work within their classroom, in a comfortable classroom, without fear of being judged on their race or any other type of differentiating factor. These are my references. So Ballard Brief, um, Dope Black, History.com, Practical Ways to Uncover Unconscious Bias and Eliminate It, Center for Responsive Schools, Times Higher Education, How to Address Bias in the Classroom and Assessment, 5 Steps, the campus. So yeah, that was my presentation. Thank you for listening. And yeah.